All right, so we'll talk about industry in Franklin, and there was a lot of it. And as I always do, I try to tell you where I got my information. The Franklin Register was the first newspaper in town. Franklin Sentinel, Stanley Chilson collection of films and pictures, Sanborn fire insurance maps, and then personal pictures and postcards that people share with me and everything. And then, of course, the museum, the Franklin Historical Museum, is a great place to go. It's right on West Central Street, right near the fire station. So, industry need not wish. That's the town motto. And I was thinking, well, it's got to have something to do with Benjamin Franklin. And sure enough, it does. This is a quote from Benjamin Franklin's The Way to Wealth. He said, "Industry need not wish, and he that lives upon hopes will die fasting. There are no gains without pains. He that hath a trade hath an estate, and he that hath a calling hath an office of profit and honor. But then the trade must be worked at, and the calling followed, or neither the estate nor the office will enable us to pay our taxes. If we are industrious, we shall never starve. For as the working man's house, hunger looks in, but dares not enter. Nor will the bailiff or the constable enter, for industry pays debts, while idleness and neglect increases them." So, that's why we have industry need not wish. Now, the straw industry was the first major industry that came to Franklin. This happened back in the late 1700s. It began in Providence when a couple of women unraveled a piece of imported braid, and they learned the secret of its plaited strands. So there was Mrs. Naomi Whipple and her assistant, Hannah Metcalf. They fabricated a case of straw bonnets and sent them to New York, and they sold very quickly. So then in 1799, a woman named Sally Richmond, she was a scholar at the Wrentham Academy. She taught the art of braiding to the ladies there where she boarded. And as a result, a new industry came to Franklin and Wrentham. Of course, at that time, well, Franklin was now established. But anyway, a new straw industry. Now, this is the Davis Thayer Homestead. It was on the corner of West Central Street and Union Street, where today's Davis Thayer High School, well, the Davis Thayer High School is. So, the first trading center in Franklin was operated here by Asa and Davis Thayer, two brothers. But in 1816, Asa Thayer died, and Herman C. Fisher became employed by Davis Thayer. And he delivered braid and hat blocks, and he bartered for any supplies that the villages needed. So a whole new industry developed. If you look very carefully in that building, over on the far left, you'll see Savings Bank. That's where Benjamin Franklin Savings Bank first started until they moved downtown. So, the Erickson, Stewart, and Thayer Straw Factory. This is from the 1873 drawing of the town of Franklin. That large building is it's on Union Street, and it's like a little mini playground behind the Davis Thayer School, between School Street and West Central Street. Right there is where that factory was. That H, that's where Union Street is. And you can see School Street at the top of the picture. But you can see that large factory that was there. That building on the corner, that was the Davis Thayer Homestead. It's an artist drawing of it, probably a little bit bigger than that, but you can kind of get the idea. And then the building to the right of the Davis Thayer house was the home of Davis Thayer Jr. And then this is from the Sanborn fire insurance maps, and it shows the Erickson, Stewart, and Thayer factory and the numerous buildings that made it up. And then here's another one. This is taken from the 1888 drawing of Franklin. And then that factory was destroyed by fire in April of 1903.
It's huge.
Yeah, oh yeah. It looks, yeah. Now look, here's Google Earth, and you can see, look down, you can see obviously the little playground and Davis Thayer. You can see West Central Street, Union Street, a little bit of School Street. Yeah, exactly, right. Here's where Ray School used to be, right over here. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Was there any connection between the hat production here and the hat store that was in Foxborough for so many years?
You know, I've actually been to that store. I don't know. I mean, this is back in the 1800s they were making these. Yeah. Was it? Yeah. They probably bought them from some of the factories, yeah. But I really wouldn't know. But I've been to that store, though, yeah. Saxon Worsted Company. This is the Saxon Worsted Company, which is on Cottage Street, near today's Saxon Street. It was constructed in 1857 by Enoch Waite, along with Aaron Hartwell Morse, as a felt mill. In 1878, it was sold to Addison Thayer, and he operated it as a Casimir mill until the spring of 1883, when textile manufacturing ceased for a time. In 1885, the property was taken over by the Saxon Worsted Company. They ran it until 1891, when they moved to Rhode Island. This is an actual picture of it here. In 1892, the company became known as Singleton Worsted Company. They started making lightweight worsteds for men's and women's wear under the trademark of the four-leaf clover. In 1917, the company became Clover Worsted Company. Now here's, again, Google Earth. You can kind of see Cottage Street as it looks like today. And you can kind of see the general location where that was. Now you can see Saxon Street and Worsted Street. I'm kind of thinking Saxon Worsted, Saxon Street, Worsted Street. I think they probably named those streets after the factory. Franklin Rubber Boot Company. I mean, you're going to find that Franklin had unbelievable types of industries. I mean, piano factories, whatever. They made rubber boots. And now this was established in 1880. This is down near the railroad tracks that go to Milford, down there up to Forge Hill. So it was along that railroad line, that's where this factory was. It was sold in 1882 to Joseph Ray and Moses Farnham. And then they established the Boston Rubber Company there. And there's an actual picture of it. And the firm continued to make rubber boots until 1893, when the business was discontinued. And then the Heliotype Printing Company started there. And the Joseph P. Bassett Straw Goods Company was there. And then in 1909, the Lock Ray Shine Box Toe Company began doing business. That's a mouthful. Say that 5 times. Whew. There's another picture of it. And that's what it looks like today. I actually drove down there at the end of Fisher Street. And I actually drove down there, and there's nothing left, but you can kind of see the general idea of where the building was. You can see where the railroad tracks are right there. And you see that strange-looking building down there. That one is Doyle Carpet. There it is. That was down, again, the end of Fisher Street. And, yeah. And then Stanley Chilson was there back in 1943 when they were putting up a new chimney at the Doyle Factory Company, Doyle Carpet Factory. Yeah. Franklin Felt. The Franklin Felt Company was established in 1909 by Harry Hayward on today's Hayward Street. Now you probably might look familiar to some of the people that have lived in Franklin for a while, because it was later sold to the American Felt Company, which took it over. And so we remember it as American Felt. And today, it's Mosley Mill, the whole complex. You can see some of the buildings that were still there and other buildings that were added on and everything. But that whole complex now is called Mosley Mill. Bassett, Sherman and Company. Now, if you look carefully, you can see the letter J. That represents the factory. And across the street, diagonally across, is the letter U. That was the central house. The central house is where today's library is. So that'll give you an idea. This is Main Street and School Street. It's on the corner of School Street and Main Street. It was in the early 1870s, a guy named Albert Daniels built a shop in that location, and it became known as Daniels and Green. Eventually, it became Bassett, Sherman and Company. And that was taken from the 1888 drawing, but then in 1889, it was destroyed by fire. And that's what stands there today. That's what stands today. Yeah, Ginley Funeral Home. Because in 1892, Aaron Hartwell Morse constructed this house, and that became his residence. And then now today, it's the Ginley Funeral Home. Staples Straw Factory. As soon as you see this picture, you're going to know where this is. Anybody know where that is?
Winter Street.
You got it. Yep. Nothing much has really changed. A little bit has changed, but yeah, yep. The Edward A. Staples Straw Factory on Winter Street. Construction began in 1907 when the Aldrich storehouse was redesigned. Apparently, the building was raised 4 feet, and another story was added to the building for a new boiler house. So, yep. And that's what it looks like today. The Ray Fabric Mills. This was down on Grove Street. It was near a pond. Now, if you go down, if you go down West Central Street, you take a left on Grove Street. You just go over the railroad tracks, and there's like a brook right there on the left, or a pond. That's where this was, right here. So you can exactly right across. Yep. Like if you go that road right there is the equivalent of West Central Street right here. So you're going along West Central Street. You come to Grove Street. And then there it is, this pond. You'll see that pond in a minute. And New Style would have been over here. Yeah. Anybody remember New Style? Oh, yeah. Yep. Yep. That's right. So it gives you an idea where this was. Yep.
Armstrong had the original building was a blacksmith shop
Oh,
at New Style Company.
yeah.
And there was a separate brick building beside it. And they joined the two.
Oh,
I used to work for Dick
huh.
when it was still just a single building.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah. Cool. And by the way, anybody has any comments like that, share them with everybody because that's great. We're all going to learn from that. That's great. So this is a map that shows the Grove Street area where the Ray Fabric Mills were. In 1713, a sawmill was constructed there and a grist mill. It was made. In 1736, a forge was built there, and that's how that hill became Forge Hill. Yeah. The land was originally owned by a Joseph Whiting, and upon his death was transferred to Daniel Peter Whiting. You can see D.P. Whiting on the map. And then he also leased the property to Francis P. Ray. You can see F.B. Ray. They got it wrong. It's Francis P. Ray. And then he produced shoddy, or reworked wool. Shoddy is another name for reworked wool. So, then the Ray brothers added a 2-story building that was used to produce the shoddy. Now listen to this. In 1871, the shoddy mill was pulled down and moved to Cottage Street, where it was used for the same purpose. And then in 1921, the Ray Fabric Mills was sold to the Whitney Worsted Company. So here, I'm showing, this is from the 1899 map. The yellow is today's Grove Street. And then you can see that. Now this right here is where Grove Street was. Because you can see that, if you remember, that picture showed that little factory right on the pond. But when you go down there, Grove Street is here, and then there's other buildings there. So that's where Grove Street is today. And then this is Old Forge Road, they call it. So it's still there.
I lived on top of that street.
Did you? Okay.
Last house on the left before they extended it.
Ah, see? Great. So that's that. Yep. And there it is. You can see how the circle shows where the factory would have been. And the arrow points to the old Forge Hill. Do you see a house there? And here's what it looks like today. I went down and the guy thought I was crazy. I went to like a little business there, and the guy's, "What are you doing?" I was, "I'm just taking pictures." Oh, but anyway, so yeah, no. Hey, what are you gonna do? So that's where the building was, right there, and that's the best shot I could get.
Looks like the water was a lot higher back in the day.
Yeah, you got that right. Yeah, yep. Oh, bless you. Yeah. Now, Franklin Sugar Beet Refinery. Now, this is a detail from the 1884 Sanborn map. Shows the Franklin Beet Sugar Refinery. It was down way at the end of Fisher Street, right by the railroad tracks. It was constructed in 1879 for the manufacture of beet sugar. So at the time that it was built, it was one of the most substantial structures to house heavy machinery. They had timbers in there and the 4 galleries. Those timbers were 16 by 16 inches by 50 feet long. One long beam. Can you imagine? Whew. Without any joints. And then after a year's trial, the decision was made to move the company down south because of the lack of beets. So, and then the building sat there abandoned for a while. Now this is a map that I got a hold of. You can see that eventually the Francis H. Appleton Company was established in that building, and then that shows that. And you can kind of just about see the line on the top is where the railroad tracks were.
So Sugar Beet Street, it caught up with Fisher.
Exactly. Yep. In fact, you can see that you can see Sugar Beet Street down at the bottom right there. Yeah, because they dead ended where Ray Hill is. But yeah, Sugar Beet Street went all the way down.
Yeah, I grew up on the Sugar Beet Street.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, right at the turn there, it turns to Ray, I think, or
Yep.
something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Turns in the corner.
Yep. So that's what Sugar Beet Street
Goes
there.
down the trail.
Oh, yeah.
Down.
Oh, does it? Yeah. I've never been down there.
Well, yeah, that foot trail is only just, even still, it's sort of active.
Sort of active. Okay.
Bike had a mini train set right there, right at the end of
Oh wow.
it was a scale train that you could ride with tracks.
Ooh.
Immediately at the turn at Sugar Beet, where it goes right,
Yeah.
you go down 100, 200 feet on the right, actually in the barn, and you could drive the train in and out.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
John Fitzpatrick.
Wow.
They built the house on the corner right there as you go behind.
Huh.
Drop down off the street.
Right.
The house on the right, the new looking houses
I'll
would
be
be
there.
finished.
That's interesting. Great.
Isn't that where the anarchists live?
Well, you know,
Down that way?
yeah, the anarchists. There was a big bombing there. Four anarchists wanted to blow up the Ray fabric mill, and they said they were in that area. Yeah. Oh yeah. Whew.
Are you telling that story?
Nope. I
I heard about it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they
Well,
went in there with the bombs set at 7 o'clock or something.
Was that? Oh, 7 o'clock.
So they got in there real early in the morning,
Yeah.
screwed up the timer, and the bomb blew up at 7. They all died.
Oh no.
That's a story I heard. It was
Wow.
a Sugar Beet. Yeah.
Maybe it was set for 7 a.m. and it was 7 p.m.
Yeah, that's what I was told. I don't know if it's true.
Yeah. Well, that's
When was
interesting.
that?
Right down on the Union Street.
No, when was that?
Oh, about 1918, I think.
That wouldn't be the Sacco Vanzetti thing, would it?
No.
Not
No,
at
that's
that time,
separate.
'cause
That's
they did a lot of that.
yeah. Yeah.
Is it known that it blew up, or is it known that it was destroyed?
I'm not sure. I mean, the bombs went off prematurely.
That's
So
what I heard. That's the story.
yeah.
That was destroyed.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Well, that's great. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. Yeah. Now here's a picture of that Appleton Company. And additions were added to the factory from time to time, and then in 1926 they had a fire. It didn't ruin it. It didn't totally ruin the building, but they fixed it and they continued on. And there it is. That's from Google Earth. I actually walked down those tracks about a year or so ago. I was doing some research. There's nothing left there now. But when this Google Earth picture was taken, there was still something left there.
Was that the old plastic factory?
I'm not sure, because I mean that's A Street right over here. There's the tracks. Yeah. Was it a plastic factory? Okay, yep. Yeah, Scott said it is, yep. Okay. Yeah, it used to be if you go down 495, you could see a building there, but then over the years, it just, now there's nothing left.
I think they just took it out within the last 10.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Yeah. Yep, cool. Milliken. This building was right across the street from the fire station, pretty much, on West Central Street. And it shows, his name was Lemuel, Lemuel, Lemuel W. Milliken and Sons. He had a leather supply company there. And that building was there for quite a while. I've seen some of the Chilson films. You can still see the building there in the 40s and the 50s. I'm not sure when they tore it down, but it was still there for, well, certainly within my lifetime. So, and there it is. Almost right across from the fire station. I don't know if anybody does anybody recognize it at all, or yeah, probably not. Franklin Lumber was kind of next to it, so yeah. Oh, and that's kind of what's there today, roughly. Yeah. Franklin Cotton Manufacturing. Now this is down on West Central Street, and I think you'll recognize where it is when you see that. It's the old factory, exactly, yeah, was it in Contro it used to be? They're out of there now, but what is it? Glenn Farmer? Okay, yep. So this factory, there was a cotton line, it was discontinued, and a company called the Worcester Textile Company went in there. They made plain and fancy toweling. In the early 1900s, it was used as a power station for the streetcars. And after World War I, the company was purchased by Brookdale Mills, and they made bedspreads from a mixture of silk, rayon, and cotton. And you can see, it looks like they added on part of the tower, but then they took it down. So today it's not there anymore. Franklin Yarn, down on Cottage Street, kind of close to where, well, it's near the mill store, let's put it that way. The mill store would be just over to the right. You can see the railroad tracks. In the early 1880s, the Franklin Felting Mill was erected there. They produced chemicals for the textile trade, scouring soaps, oils, salts for dyeing, and in later years it was turned into a felt mill by Enoch Waite and Aaron Hartwell Morse. And they were followed by Morse and Thayer in the same product line. And then that was the building that was there. In 1882, the Franklin Knitting Company took over and was formed with Addison M. Thayer as the manager. And then they were doing experiments around that time by a guy by the name of Samuel Jaros in the knitted stocking line, which proved to be a successful way of making what is known as women's full-fashion hosiery. And then in October of 1892, Mr. Thayer and Mr. Jaros broke up. They dissolved their partnership by mutual consent when Mr. Jaros retired. And then in the early 1900s, the Franklin Yarn Company was formed and the business was expanded. But in 1906, that factory was destroyed by fire. Within a short period of time, this new cement fireproof building was constructed. And it's still there today, Franklin Paint. Yep. Haywood Mill. Haywood Mill. The Haywood Mill was constructed on Union Street at Nason's Crossing, and it was in 1872 by Ray, Rathburn, and Mackenzie. But in 1880, Ray and Rathburn withdrew, and Charles Mackenzie became the sole owner. And he changed the machinery to produce satinet. Now, satinet, I'm told, is if you had a nice fancy hat, the satinet is that nice velvet material that's inside the hat. I believe that's what satinet is. And then there's the Haywood Woolen Mill. But in 1891, Charles Mackenzie died, and Harry Haywood purchased the property. Now, there used to be a house right on the corner of Dean Avenue and Main Street where the post office is. There was a big home there. That was owned by Charles Mackenzie. And then around that time, Harry Haywood bought that house.
So that's the Franklin Mill building?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the Franklin Mill building?
A Franklin Mill store? Yeah, that's what this is. Yeah.
Okay.
You're going to see it expand as we go.
Okay,
But,
yeah, my
yeah,
shop's in there.
yeah,
Attention, Scott, I've got some history there.
yeah.
Believe me, I see this in my sleep.
Scott's working on the next diorama of this area, so sorry for the nightmares. No, he's doing a great job with it. In July of 1895, the north wing was added, and in 1913, the east wing was added. And then in 1928, the front of the building was expanded, and I'll show you in a minute. Oh, in 1939, the mill was put up for auction, and the plant was the buildings of, let's see, yeah, it was put up for auction, and it was sold to two people, Arthur Moore and Harry Bullocken. The two buyers joined their resources on a 50-50 basis. They said that they bought the property for an investment. They had no immediate plans for the property. And then Leo J. Murray Company bought it in 1941. They bought it from Harry Bullocken and Arthur Moore. And they bought it for $25,000. That was a little bit of a profit for the two of them. And
All
Linda,
during the Depression, right?
oh yeah, yeah, 1941. Yeah, a lot of properties were sold at auction. You know, the dairy farm up, the Wrights Farm Dairy up on, no. Meredith, what's the dairy farm that your grandmother is? A Bright Farm, that's right. Yeah, Bright Farm, that was sold at auction. The Haywood, God, I can't think. Haywood Manor over there, that used to be the convent, that was sold at auction, all kinds of auctions. So anyway, so Leonard Remington was the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, and he helped to have the owners buy the property. Now here's a picture that shows how they added on to the building. The original part of the building was back there. This first part was the first addition, and then that little addition in. You can see how the tracks were going like this, so they kind of had to do that. So, yeah. The J. Clark Machine and Foundry Company. That was down at the crossing, right at the corner of Cottage Street and Union Street. And it was at one time, Clark Machine and Foundry was the oldest industry in Franklin to be operated by one family, with the third generation carrying on the work in the early 1900s. It was started in 1841 by Joseph Wadsworth Clark down in South Franklin. And then here's an advertisement from 1890. It shows Joseph Clark and Sons. Yeah. And then here's an undated photo. That was that building. And that's what it looks like today. I think it's the same building. Yeah, added on a little bit, changed a little bit. But that's where it was, right there. Otis Metcalf. That was down inside the big triangle downtown Franklin, right across from the post office. Otis Metcalf and Sons Mill was located there. And here's from an artist drawing from the 1888 drawing of Franklin. And you can see the lumber yard. The lumber yard was, in later years, it was sold to Lock Brothers of Milford. And in 1933, Adam McIntosh would become the sole owner of the company, and he would call it Franklin Lumber. I think a lot of us remember Franklin Lumber. And then today, that's what it looks like. Franklin Lumber's gone now, or at least not in that location. Ray Woolen Company. That was down on Cottage Street. It was formed in 1876 by James Ray and Joseph Ray. And it was a three-set mill of 20 broad looms. The first of its type installed in Franklin. And then in 1871, one of the buildings that we talked about of Francis Ray, the shoddy mill, was moved to Cottage Street. And I believe that was up on the where Agway is today. I think that's where that building was, across the tracks. And there it is. That detail shows the Ray Shoddy Mill over there. And this freight house was there in 1940. That's kind of where that mill was. Clark Cutler used to use that as a place for storing things and everything because the train was right there. And then there's Agway, and that's where the mill was. And then the American Woolen Company purchased it, and today that's Franklin Landing. There it is.
I put the clock up in there.
Did you?
On the peak, yeah, when Lowell was rebuilding that whole thing.
Oh, wow. Neat. Interesting. Huh.
They're trying to reset it now.
Trying to reset it?
They can't get in the attic anymore.
Can't get in the attic.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, wow.
I'm about to go up there. I might go up there.
Yeah, wow. Interesting. Richardson and Hopkins Canning Company. I have not been able to find a picture of this, but I saw this on the Sanborn map, and I'm thinking, well, okay, it was a canning company. In the mid-1870s, this company was established on Lincoln Street. Now, according to the map, it says it's 3 miles from the post office. So one day I was at the post office. I said, okay, watch the odometer. I drove down, and I got to 3 miles, and I'm looking around. Could have been anywhere, I don't know, but it's down on Lincoln Street. And listen to this, though. They started out on a small scale, and over the years, they enlarged their buildings and added machinery and 240 horsepower boilers. In 1882, they produced 400,000 cans. So they had quite an operation going there. Franklin Soap Manufactory. This is down the end of Dean Avenue, right near the Thompson Press. It was on the right, just, in fact, well, you'll see in a second. If you come down Alpine Street, which is today's Hillside Road, and you come to a stop on Dean Avenue, it was right there. It was established by a guy named Rudolph Summers. And let's see, and they made soap. And it was in 1907, Frank Shiner, John Morse, and Harold Stewart, they ran the business as the Franklin Chemical Company. And then Harry Bullock bought, in 1912, Harry Bullock took possession of it, and he constructed a new tenement in that location. And there's an advertiser from 1909. Now you can see what Dean Avenue is in that house. I want to see how, there was a teacher in Franklin that lived in that house. She taught in the 50s in the Ray School in the 4th grade. Anybody? Vivian Rogers, yes. Vivian Rogers, Miss Rogers, yep. Did you have to learn your alphabet backwards?
Yeah.
Yep. I guess you had to, yeah. And what would you get as a prize? A dictionary?
Oh, no.
Oh.
You know what I mean? I was just, the whole class had
Oh,
to do that.
oh, so-
On the room,
Oh, okay.
front and backwards.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know somebody that can do it.
She was tough.
Huh?
She was tough.
Oh yeah, I won't go into the horror stories, but she did some things that were, yeah, it would not fly today. So we won't. I'm on being videoed, so I don't want to. But anyway, yeah, Snow Bassett and Company. This is down the end of Dean Avenue, Snow Bassett and Company, and this is what it looked like when it was first constructed. And then in later years, they added on to it, and you can see the different changes to it. And by the way, this was a Thompson Press, in case anybody's wondering. Yeah, but let's see. The detail on the left is from 1886, and that shows what it looked like when it was built. But the detail on the right is from 1899, and it shows the 2 additions that were made. And what the additions added some much-needed stability, which the original building lacked. And there it is. That's what it looked like in 1905. And a company called the Golding Company of Boston purchased it, and they reinforced it for heavy machinery, and they started to manufacture printing presses, paper cutters, and card cutters. Then in 1918, the American Type Founders Company took it over as a temporary manufacturing unit. And then in 1926, the company was taken over by the Thompson National Press Company. And they continued to run the company until it was demolished in 2018 to make way for that apartment complex. Did you know we had a piano factory in Franklin? Yes. Yep, right up on the top of the hill across from the train depot. The Trowbridge Piano Factory was located right across the street from the train depot. And in later years, there was a company in Franklin that used it as a warehouse. All together, Franklin Furniture. Yep, you got it. Freddie Saltman. That's right, and today that's what it was. Enoch Waite Felting Mill on Depot Street. You know that municipal parking lot down the end of Depot Street? That's where that was. This is taken from the 1873 drawing. In October of 1874, Enoch Waite purchased that land. He erected a felting mill. In August of 1876, the mill began operating and would continue until 1880 when it was destroyed by fire. So many buildings destroyed by fire. But when you think about it, once a fire started, just let it go. I mean, there's really no fire equipment to speak of, so if it caught fire, that was it. Yeah, today, that's what it looks like. And that parking lot on the top left, top right, that's where my house was. Tore it down. Then Enoch Waite also had a mill over on Alpine Place, right across the tracks. If you go down Alpine Place and you come to Alpine Row, that's where that was, right there. And then this is looking at it towards the train depot. Actually, that's the freight house that was there. And that was the mill. And then in the early 1900s, American Felt took it over. But in April of 1931, it was destroyed by fire. The Joseph Whiting Mill. And this was down by the railroad tracks as well. It was constructed in the 1850s on Cottage Street. And this detail was taken from the 1889 Sanborn map, while the one on the left is. The one on the right was taken in 1894. In later years, it became the John W. Richardson Company. And eventually it was taken over by Saxon Worcester. And that's where it was. So actually this preceded Saxon Worcester. So, DeBadges and Dorico. How many remember that place? Everybody remembers that. To live on Ruggles Street on a hot summer day, just smelling that bread must have been like, whoa, unbelievable. In 1892, Augustine DeBadges came to the United States from Italy, and he worked in the Haywood Mill for 9 years. In 1905, Rocco Dorico came to the United States from Italy, and he became the leader of an Italian band in which both he and Augustine played the clarinet. They got very friendly, apparently. In 1909, they decided to become partners in a new bakery on Ruggles Street called DeBadges and Dorico. At that time, they purchased a 2-tenement house on Ruggles Street, and they shared the same house to save money. In 1914, they purchased a brand new 1914 Ford chassis that was fitted with a special Highland panel body, a panel body that was adapted for baker's use. And as it noted in the May 29, 1914 Franklin Sentinel, it was painted and decorated in a first-class and dignified fashion. Yep. Here's an advertisement that appeared in 1918. Apparently, during that time, it was during the war, I guess. As we are obliged to work in conjunction with the Food Administration, and owing to the scarcity of materials and the next to impossible transportation facilities, we are obliged to announce to the public of Franklin and vicinity that as of Monday, February 11th, our bakeries must go on a cash basis, and there will be no deliveries on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We also take this opportunity to thank our many friends and patrons for past favors and trust that they will cooperate with us in these trying times, had to be during World War I, and favor us in the past as with a continuance of their patronage. Now, you notice Nile Home Bakery and Francesco Brunelli. Francesco Brunelli bought the bakery that was where the Rome restaurant is today. So he had that bakery. And then, of course, DeBadges and Dorico were over on Ruggles Street. And then in 1949, they had a big open house. And Stanley Chilson was there, took some movies. I took this from that. What they did is they held a big celebration for their 40th year in business. The management apparently had no idea of the number of friends they had because 2,000 visitors called to extend their congratulations when they had anticipated 600. So everybody showed up. Yeah. The following month, the two owners and their wives would set sail for an extended visit to Italy so that they could see relatives they hadn't seen in over 40 years. Imagine that. 40 years. Now, in the 1940s, they opened up a pastry shop in downtown Franklin on Main Street. And then in 1958, they moved over to the inside of the Newberry's building, Newberry store, and their little pastry shop in there. And that's what it looked like inside Newberry's. Today, that's where, well, it's empty right now. They had that Acapulco restaurant in there. But that's exactly right. When you walk in that front door now, this is exactly that spot right here. Yep. I think you'll agree with me when I say that those pastries look mighty good. And then today, this is what it looks like today on Ruggles Street. Bright Farm Dairy. A little smile on Meredith's face when I say that, because her grandparents owned that. Yep, the Bright Farm Dairy that was on West Central Street. Now this is looking towards the center of town. And in the 1930s, the farm was sold at auction. And here it is looking from the other direction. In later years, Franklin Fence would take over the business and they would do business there. And then there was a little dairy on the side. It was called the Bright Farm Dairy. They sold ice cream and everything there. And then eventually it was taken over by a family known as, and they renamed it the Caravan Restaurant. Everybody remember the Caravan Restaurant?
That was the chuck wagon.
And before that was a Texas Chuck Wagon. Exactly. Yep, that's right.
Look at how nice that looks, the cows and everything.
I know it.
It was just look like that today.
Oh my God. Unbelievable.
Green going through there.
Oh, it's beautiful.
As a matter of fact, here's what it looked like today. Yeah. Wow. Gorelick. the Elm Farm Dairy. This is down on West Central Street and in Unionville. In the mid-1800s, Joseph Ray brought his family to Franklin from Mendon and took over this dairy. And that's how they made a lot of their money, or started to make a lot of their money. And then in later years, it was sold to two brothers, Israel and Maxwell Gorelick. And then Stanley Chilson was there in 1936. They had some sort of a tour. This was their main building. And then today, it's a huge complex. And of course, the railroad tracks run behind there going to Milford. And Joseph Ray was instrumental in having those tracks put in, and for good reason. I mean, it's right by his farm. So that was pretty smart. Clark Cutler McDermott. Yeah. In July of 1911, Walter Clark, William Cutler, and Thomas McDermott formed a new company on West Central Street. It would be called Clark Cutler McDermott, and they would produce horse blankets. In later years, in later years I would work there actually. They produced all sorts of things, as we'll talk about in a minute actually. William Cutler was the president, Thomas McDermott was the vice president, and Walter Clark was the treasurer. Yeah, and in 1954, in January of 54, they introduced a new product, and it was called airlock. I worked in airlock in 1968 before I went in the Navy. A guy named Jim Corey was the manager in there, and Jim was instrumental in developing the airlock concept. It was like these vibration pads. They're like little suction cups, and they would, if you put a heavy machinery on there, they would stop the machines from vibrating and everything. They were very popular. So these pads could take pressures of up to 4,000 pounds per square inch, and would eliminate the need for heavy equipment to be cemented down. And then the pads could be picked up and reused many times. It was really quite a thing. And the company chemist, his name was J. Murray Stevens. And I'm sure that a few people recognize that name. He's no stranger to Franklin High School graduates. He was a very popular chemistry teacher for many years. But he was the one that developed a lot of that. I can remember when we were mixing the material, it was like a greenish material. And we had these big bags of vinyl and material, and we had this big machine with a big hopper, and it would mix it all up, and then what a
I used to cut that for them.
oh, did you? Yeah.
Turn over those sheets about 3/4 thick.
Yep.
I had cutting surfaces back.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, it was quite a thing, an operation.
The Jimmy Corey from Pearl Street?
Exactly. Yep. Yep. Jim Corey. Yep.
I didn't know that either.
Oh yeah, Jim Corey. Yeah. Senior.
Nice guy, he was a pretty nice guy.
Yeah.
Mr. Corey.
Yeah. I worked for him for a couple of years. Yeah.
Thank you, over.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Well, today it's funny. When they were tearing down the building on the right, the only thing that was left was a press. And I took a picture of it. That was the press I worked on. It's like, wow, so that was something. It's gone now, but yeah. You know, one thing in Clark Cutler, they had a union, and when I started there on the third shift, as everybody does when you work at Clark Cutler. You start off on the third shift, and then as jobs opened up on the first shift, you could bid on them, and whoever had most seniority would get the job. So airlock, a position opened up in the airlock department with Jim Corey. I was the only one that bid on it, so I got the job. So I got on the day shift. And back then, the union said, okay, this is how much money everybody makes, $2.78 an hour, or whatever it was. And yeah, it was really something. Spring Pond Ice Company. Spring Pond, what's another name for Spring Pond? Greens Pond, right. Same with Spruce Pond. What's another name for Spruce Pond? Greasy's Pond. Yeah, I don't know, because Joe Greasy owned the property over there, and the same with Green. George Green had that ice, as you'll see, he had an ice operation there. But in 1884, it was established by Alfred Clark was the guy, was the dealer at that time, and then a Walter Ward took it over. This is from 1905 here. Now, you're going to love this. This is from the Stanley Chilson film. This is 1938. Just to show you this is George Green, Just this operation was unbelievable. They would cut the ice into big chunks, big square chunks, then they would go up the conveyor, and you can see them going off. And they went to an ice house. The ice house would keep ice during the summer.
Amazing.
Yeah, tons of ice. And they're going up the conveyor. But when do you see how they cut the ice on the pond? This is unbelievable.
They use sawdust to insulate the ice house. That's how
Yes,
they get the ice.
sawdust was it you had to insulate, sure. Yeah. Must have been a nice place to go in the summertime, though.
Them days, yeah.
Yeah. But look at that. See the blocks of ice going up. It does have to be about a foot thick anyway, huh? Yeah. Huh. I wonder what determined what there or there. But see the long pieces of ice? Well, wait till you see what they use. You can see Washington Street up there. Yeah. And here's a guy cutting the longer pieces there. But to make those long cuts, they need some kind of a machine.
Looks like you just did it.
Yeah.
They sawed all that by hand.
Well, not quite. Not quite.
You think the instances of injury were in that job?
I know it. Now there's the machine. Look at this. That's something? That's something, yeah. A big saw blade.
Oh, that's something.
That's cool, huh? Yeah. And I think they stopped to refuel.
See a blade like that got loose a couple of days ago?
Really?
It was on the news.
I
yeah.
saw that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Someone almost got hit.
Wow.
Just missed somebody.
Man, oh man. Wow.
Oh, that thing that went into the door,
Yeah.
store, the
Right
guy
next to
just
the guy.
went in the store.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Nothing happened to him.
Mm.
It was about this big.
Wow. So the John Fitzpatrick Marble Yard, that was at the corner of Oak Street and Beaver Street, kind of where Daniel McKay Hill Road is right now, right in there. In the 1890s, he would sell the property to the Archdiocese of Boston, and they built a parochial school in this location. That building would eventually become St. Mary's Church in the 1900s, when the existing St. Mary's Church, which was an old wooden church, burnt down. Oh, any questions?
It's amazing how many businesses were here.
Oh, that's unbelievable. And nowadays, you've got today's industry. You've got the Forge Hill Industrial Park, and it continues to this day. I mean, I only go up to about into the 70s, but even when 495 came in, a lot of industry came to Franklin that I haven't even talked about. So,
I could see how easy it would be to grow up in this town and not have to leave.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
You could work here too.
yeah, and a lot of homes were built because of the railroad. You saw how many factories did we talk about that were along the railroad tracks, from Thompson Press all the way down to even into going towards Milford and all that. And a lot of the homes on Cottage Street were probably built for people, and so yeah,
You didn't even bring in the small businesses either.
that's right. That's
That
right.
would, you could have done another hour.
Oh yeah, well your little mom and pop grocery stores and all over. There's many of those shoe stores. We've talked about all those too. Yeah. No, Franklin was quite the town. It still is quite the town. Yeah. Yeah. But
There's a lot of mill housing down near where the 99 is.
oh yeah, okay.
After Jimmy Johnston's house.
Oh,
there was
right.
Mill housing
That's
there.
right.
And then there were two brick buildings
Yeah.
on the left hand.
Two brick
side.
buildings. Yeah.
One of them's still there, the other one torn down.
Yeah, a lot of housing down in the Unionville area because that's where all the industry base really began in Franklin, because it was Rentham at the time. In fact, a lot of the reason why Franklin became a town was because the industry was there, and they wanted a church in that little village. They said, no, you can't have a church there because it's Rentham. The only church in Rentham was the one in Rentham Center. So finally they split it. They took a big chunk of Rentham, and they eventually became Franklin. That's when they built their church.
Did any of the city mills have anything to do with Franklin at that time?
City Mills, yeah, that's,
'Cause there is still a big mill there.
Yeah.
Right on the pond, right
Yeah.
on the corner of Pleasant Street.
right, yeah. Well, Norfolk, I mean, City Mills is part of Norfolk. Norfolk was really part of Rentham. When Rentham, when Norfolk was, Norfolk, well, it was part of Rentham, yeah. In fact, Norfolk, and I think it's North Folk, Northern Folks, Norfolk. I think that's how they came up with Norfolk. But yeah, it was part of Rentham.
There used to be a mill where Camden is now, Gordon Jealousy.
Oh,
And then they had a fire.
Lord and Jill.
Lord and Jealous, right, yeah. Okay, is that down near the pond there?
Yep, across.
Oh, yeah, okay. Lord and Jealous, right.
Now that's where Camden is.
Yeah, yeah, burnt down, yeah. Yeah,
In
Lord,
fact,
I think,
Another thing burns
As a
down.
little kid, my father took me down there the day after, I remember.
oh,
well.
really?
Yeah.
Wow,
I think it burnt on a Saturday night, because I think it was a Sunday morning, we took
Wow.
a ride down there. I was 6, 5, I don't
wow.
Did you mention the wagon factory at all, that used to be on East Street?
Oh, I'm familiar with that, but I think the Stewart family ran that, didn't they? I should have mentioned that, yeah.
It was right there, right at the corner, and the railroad tracks were right across the street.
Okay.
Right across East Street.
Right,
So
right.
the factory itself, the wagon factory, became the town barn.
Uh-huh, okay.
And I lived in the house next to that.
Right, right in the corner of Walnut Avenue, I think it is? Yeah. Ah. Well, I'll revise this.
That trolley that you showed,
Yeah.
what was the span, I mean, where did it go, from where to where?
Oh, those trolleys, that trolley went to Rentham and into North Attleboro. It also went to Woonsocket. And I think there was even a line that went to Medway. Where you can see trolley tracks going by the town common going up to Medway. So they were all over the place. Oh, yeah. And down to Unionville going toward Bellingham. Oh, yeah. Sure. That's right. Yeah. Franklin had them from 1900 to 1924.
dependable in today's.
Oh, please.
Where did Unionville get its name from?
Oh, where did Unionville get its name from? I don't know. Is this a trick
Somebody asked
question?
me that, and I couldn't answer.
Unionville. That's a good question. Huh? I don't know. It's kind of like Medway has Caryville, Rentham has Sheldonville,
Westwood has Islington,
right?
yeah.
I think it had something to do with the railroads, because they all had train stations.
Oh,
There was
absolutely.
a train station down in Union.
That's right. Yeah, right by the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that in my railroad presentation. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
No, that was wonderful.
No. Okay. Good.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors, good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.